So I've come back around to the IBM 5150 clone project, and one of the things I've acquired are 3 IBM 5150 BIOS ROMs and 2 sets of the BASIC and ROM here. So I'm going to go ahead and try those in the motherboard here. Needed to make sure, of course, the motherboard was working, so we have the 5150 motherboard here. We have the anonymous BIOS in here. This BIOS expects an AT keyboard, where these BIOS chips will expect an XT style keyboard, so I have an AT keyboard plugged in. We've got an old 8-bit floppy disk controller here that we'll be using, and I've got a 16-bit VGA card that works in an 8-bit slot. Up behind here, sorry for the rough movements, I've got 2 360K floppy drives, and of course a XT style power supply. I've got DOS, I don't remember what version's on that floppy, 3.3, so this is a bootable DOS 3.3 floppy I just created. And of course, the VGA monitor. So we're going to go ahead and do check out of the hardware first, and then we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and test the system with the anonymous BIOS installed, the 8-bit floppy controller card, the VGA card that we looked at. This is actually a bootable configuration, but I'll show you what happens here. So there's the Super PC BIOS, the anonymous BIOS. I'll go ahead and mount that DOS 3.3 floppy. And the heads are moving across the drive, so it is booting. So in this configuration, we do have a working machine. We've got all of the DOS stuff on here. I don't know if I can start GW Basic, but since I have it on a floppy, let's go ahead and see if GW Basic will run in 256K of memory, just for giggles. So, mount drive B. Oops, it's hard typing around the camera mount. And there's GW Basic. And I would expect this to load. Of course, that assumes the floppy's good, and it is. So, you know, we've got a usable system here, 256K of RAM and 8088, DOS 3.3. I don't remember how to get out of... Don't remember how to exit GW Basic. Well, no big deal, we can just reboot. So I'm feeling pretty good that the hardware's at least okay at this point. Sorry, I'm off camera here putting the floppy back in its sleeve. The floppies I'm working from, although I am working from a backup, are these 3 floppies here that I picked up at my local recycler. You know, it's a complete set of DOS 3.3, Disk 1 and Disk 2, and then the GW Basic disk. I have made a backup of this disk here, which is what we're actually booted from. I will get backups made of all 3 of these disks at some point. So it's kind of sweet to have original copyright Microsoft Corporation, you know, software disk. I don't know what these came with. They don't look like they were actually manufactured by Microsoft, though who knows. So that's kind of cool. Anyhow, it looks like the hardware platform's okay. So the next thing we'll do is swap in one of these BIOS ROMs and see if we can get the dip switches configured so the system will boot. With the anonymous BIOS, it ignores the dip switches on the 5150 motherboard, and I think just detects hardware via software to get a configuration that runs. The IBM BIOS in these ROMs, however, requires the dip switches to be set correctly to get the system to boot. So let's try that next. So we've got the anonymous BIOS here. In Vision, I'll use this 24-pin chip puller to remove him. Get him back into the protective foam. And we'll grab the first one of these BIOS ROMs that I picked up. And we'll go ahead and insert him. should be good right there. Notches in the correct direction. Everything there looks good. Get the cards back in. I do have occasional failures with this VGA card. Let me swing the camera back up around so we can watch the boot screen here. Just one more check. Yep, pin 1 is in the correct orientation. Let's apply power and see what we get. So it saw the BIOS on the VGA card. That's a good sign. I don't see it moving beyond that. Oh, it found ROMs. I forgot that this takes forever to actually move through the diagnostics. Let's see if it tries to get to the point it tries to boot. So far, no floppy activity. Well, this isn't looking very good. I'm going to have to dig up the documentation on the dip switches and check the settings. At this point, I don't think it's going to move beyond this point. Oh, I've got an AT style keyboard on this system, and I really need to put the XT style keyboard on. So let me power down and do that. So I've substituted in an XT style keyboard. It's actually a switchable keyboard. And we'll see if we make any more progress. I don't know, 4055 201's an error code. It's possible that it is. And I don't have the manual here in front of me. I'm going to have to go print out some pages from it. But I thought I'd give it a shot in this state. I don't think it's going to boot here. But I'm going to let it sit here and run, and we'll come back when something's happened. So with the anonymous BIOS in the machine, as we saw earlier, I can get the machine to boot DOS. With the IBM 5150 BIOS in, it attempts to boot DOS and hangs. I've spent a fair amount of time researching, trying to understand what's going on, and I just have not been able to find an answer. You know, I've looked at the dip switch settings, etc., and they all seem fine. Put the IBM BIOS back in and I'll demonstrate where we get to here. I've swapped out the video cards. I've tried an EGA card even though I don't have an EGA monitor. Had no luck with that. Like I say, multiple VGA cards. Don't understand the issue, but anyhow, I'll power back on here. We'll get back around here where you can see the screen. Move my coffee cup. I put a post card in to see if I can capture post message where it's hanging, and it's actually, it gets through post and is hanging trying to load DOS. So it just accessed the floppy. The floppy heads are now moving as it loads DOS. And it gets to this spot right here where I don't know what track it's reading, but it's just reading the disk, and the machine's just froze at this point and doesn't get beyond it. On the post code, I just see a 00. You know, we're well through the post, and the machine does not get beyond this point. I've played with the dip switches for monitor type, etc., and just had no luck. So at this point, I'm not going to be able to get it to boot on the anonymous BIOS. which is okay. It wasn't necessarily the goal of this. What I was going to do, however, is put those BASIC ROMs in and see if we can boot to BASIC. So I've got the ROMs here. Let me. Sorry for the screechy camera mount there. Let's go ahead and pop in BASIC and ROM, if I can get the ROMs to go in. Excuse my reach. This might actually be better with the chip insertion tool. All the leads here are nice and straight, so why are you being stubborn? I've got the ROMs down into the anti-static foam, just in the order they go in. And I've actually made a mistake here. So let me back this out. I've got the ROMs in the wrong positions. This is actually the BIOS ROM here. I tried all three of the BIOS ROMs I had. They're all the same revision, which was the last revision. Oh, that wasn't good. This is actually the BIOS ROM here. And I can see that the BIOS ROM is in the socket incorrectly. It's a little difficult reaching around the camera mount here to do this. Come on. That's better. This one needs to come out. We are recording. Pin 1 orientation is correct. They're in the correct sockets. Let's go ahead and put the video card back in and see what we get. Oops. Okay, that's not a, oh, there it is. Okay. So it's attempting to boot DOS, which we know is where it hung up before. And there it is. So it wasn't able to boot DOS, so it dropped into the ROM BASIC. So we have the IBM Personal Computer BASIC version C1.1, copyright 1981, with almost 63K of memory available. Hard to type around the camera mount. Oops. And there we are running DOS Basic. I'm assuming the load and save are cassette based at this point, though I don't know that. I wonder how I break. Interesting problem. It's not Control C. It's not escape. I'm just randomly flailing around on the keyboard at this point. Well, I have no idea how we actually break a running program. It's attempting to boot DOS again from floppy. It's accessing the floppy. It'll time out here and drop down to the ROM BASIC. Like I said, I'm assuming that would be a C load type function. Well, I'll go ahead and let it try to boot DOS again. It shouldn't. It should be the same issue as before. I can't imagine those extra ROMs were required to boot DOS, although who knows. No, it's hung in the same place it hung before trying to start DOS. Anyhow, that kind of, I guess, wraps this up. We are able to take the original IBM ROMs. I'm going to have to cycle power here and put them into the 5150 clone motherboard, and by all appearances get them to work. So it's working its way through post again here. Should get that on camera. Upside down. You can see it stopping in various places. A couple of, 75, and there it is in BASIC. So that is the BASIC and ROM. And boom, we have a simple BASIC program. Anyhow, I will wrap this video up here. If I can figure out how to get the thing to actually boot into DOS with the IBM ROM in place, I will do so, and I'll update with another video. If not, it means I didn't try or I didn't figure it out. Anyhow, we'll talk soon.